We continue now at the top of Daf Mem Daled Amud Beis Meseches Sukkah. This is Sukkah Daf 44b. And the previous summit, the Gemara had a contradiction within Rabbi Yochanan. In one place, Rabbi Yochanan says that Arava is a halach l'Moshe Sinai, and in another place, Rabbi Yochanan says that it's a takonas neviim, it's a yesod neviim, it's a decree from the later prophets. And so the Gemara answers, it's not difficult. Kan b'mikdash, kan b'gvulin. It depends if you're talking about in the Beis HaMikdash or outside the Beis HaMikdash. Rashi over here says, b'mikdash halacha l'Moshe Sinai. The mitzvah of Arava in the Beis HaMikdash was a halacha l'Moshe Sinai. But b'gvulin yesod neviim. Outside of the Beis HaMikdash, it was an institution from the neviim. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Yami says, Arava tzricha shir, there's a minimum shir for the Arava. Rashi says, L'kamon mefaresh shiura. Later on, we're going to explain exactly what the shir is. V'yeino nitelas ela b'fnei atzma. The Arava has to be taken by itself. Rashi says, Ein davar acher negad ima demukach shehi mitzvah. You can't bind anything else together with the Arava. It has to be clear that you're doing the mitzvah of Arava. V'yein adam yotzi dechovaso b'Arava shebelolav. And finally, Rabbi Ami says, a person is not yotzi the obligation of Arava with the Arava that's in the lulav. So the Gemara says, 1 second. Kevon damar mar ein nitelas ela b'fnei atzma. If the master already said that it has to be taken on its own, pshita dein adam yotzi b'Arava shebelolav. Obviously not going to be yotzi with the Arava in the lulav. That's not on its own. So what do you have to make the same statement twice? So the Gemara answers, what might you have thought? When we say that it can't be with anything else, that would be in a situation, let's say you pick up the lulav once. So if you pick up the lulav, the arba minim, one time, you can't be yotzei 2 mitzvahs. But let's say he picks it up twice. So in other words, he picks up the lulav l'shem, the mitzvah of lulav, and then he picks up the mitzvah of lulav, the lulav again, l'shem, the mitzvah of arava. So maybe that already would be obvious that you're doing it for arava. Say malo. I would say that would not be a problem. So kamash malon. So he's coming to tell you, no, that's why he has to make 2 statements. He has to say it has to be taken on its own, and you're not yotze with the arava in the lulav. Even if you take the lulav twice, that's not going to work. For Rav Chisda Amar Rav Yitzchak, but Rav Chisda says in the name of Rav Yitzchak, Adam yotze dechovaso b'arava shebelolav. A person can be yotze the obligation using the arava in the lulav. And the Gemara continues, V'kam shiura, what is this minimum shir of the arava? Amar Rav Nachman says, Gimel badei alden lachen, it's 3 branches, each one having moist leaves. Rav Shesha says, Afilo alei echad uvad echad, even 1 leaf and 1 branch. The Gemara says, alei echad uvad echad sal gadaitach. Do you literally mean 1 leaf and 1 branch? Elaima, what it really means to say is, Afilo alei echad bibad echad. It means 1 leaf on 1 branch. That's going to be enough of a shear. Rashi over here says, Shalosha badei sheyesh b'chol echad alin lachen, meaning 3 branches, and each one should have moist leaves. And alei echad uvad echad sal gadaitach. The Gemara said, you mean to say 1 branch and 1 leaf, meaning separate? Alei mashma below bad, ubad below alei. That's mashma, you take a leaf and a branch and they're separate from each other. Umay lakicha ba'alei below bad halom minkar. Are you taking a leaf without the branch? That doesn't make sense. It's not even clear you're doing a mitzvah. So the Gemara explained, no, alei echad b'bad echad. It means bad echad is 1 branch. Ubo alei echad, as long as it has 1 leaf on that branch, v'dayo, that's going to be enough. V'chiyamrina le'el gimel tfachim legabe lulav. Now Rashi says, when we say earlier that a lulav has to be 3 tfachim, hu da'amrinan shetehei arava arucha shlosha tfachim. That's where we say, when it comes to the lulav, the arava that's in the lulav, that has to be 3 tvachim. Aval arava sheyamakivin ba b'fnei atzma, but the arava that they used to hold and circle the mizbeach without the lulav, kol du sagi, any size is really going to be good enough. There's no minimum shear of 3 tvachim when it comes to the arava that's not part of the lulav. He says nowadays, Rashi says, the minhag is to bring nice long arava branches, sheminka or a mitzvah be'en yafa. That's a way of beautifying and showing that you're doing the mitzvah with generosity. And the Gemara continues, Amar Ivo says, Ivo is the father of Rav. He says, I was standing in front of Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok, and a certain person brought an Arav in front of him, Shakil chavit v'lo barach. He took it, he waved it this way, that way, and he didn't make a bracha. Kasavar minhag neviim, and the reason why he didn't make a bracha is because he held that it's only a custom from the Nevi'im, it's not a takana from the Nevi'im, so there's no need for a bracha. Ivo v'Chizkiya b'nei Barate de Rav. Ivo and Chizkiya, who were the sons of the daughter of Rav, Aisu Arav l'kamei de Rav. They brought an Arav in front of Rav. And the Gemara says the same idea. Chavit v'lo barach. He waved it around, but he didn't make the bracha. Again, kasavar, because he held minhag nevi'im, it's just a custom from the Nevi'im. Amar Ivo said, Havakaimno Akame de Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok. I was standing in front of Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok. Asal Akame Ahu Gavra. A certain person came in front of him. And the Gemara continues, Amar Lei, this particular individual said to Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok, Kiryosa Isli, I have villages. Karmaya Isli, I have vineyards. Zaysai Isli, I have olives. V'yasu b'nei Kiryos, and the people from the villages are coming. Umekashkashin b'karmaya, and they're hoeing in the vineyards. V'yochlin b'zaysai, and they're eating the olives. Rashi over here says, Umekashkashin b'karmaya. Ojonas akramim b'shvius, they're hoeing the vineyards on the Shemitah year. V'yochli zeisaya b'schar chafiras akramim, and as a reward for digging up the vineyards, they're taking as a payment, they're taking the olives. Ve'enon mafkirin laniyim, and they're not making it hefker for the poor people. So he asked him, he said as follows, Orich o lo orich, is this proper or not? Rashi says, Orich o lo orich tov lasos kein o lo, is it appropriate or not? Orich loshen davar hagun. Orich is the language of, is this an appropriate thing to do, or is this not appropriate? That's the question that he asked. So Amar Lei, so Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok responded, Lo arach, it's not appropriate. Rashi over here says, Amar Lei lo arach lefi shata poreya pulasum mipeiros shvius. What you're basically doing is you're paying them for their work from the fruits of shvius. V'atorah amar lo achla v'lo l'schora. The Torah says that it's to eat it, it's not for business purposes. Aval hakishkosh mutter l'kidel l'kaman. But the hoeing itself, that's actually mutter, as we're going to say in a moment. But the point is, he said to them, it's not appropriate to pay them in this fashion. And so the Gemara says, "Havekashavik levaozil." So he went on his way and he went off. Amar, and he said, so Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok said, "Kado havesi dairi biaro hadam emshinin." I've lived in this land for 40 years. V'lo chamisi barinish mahalech b'orchon desaknon kedain. I've never seen someone who walks in such a straight path like this individual. So Hadar Hasi, then this person returned. V'yamar le mai mi'avid. He said, what should I do to rectify the situation? So Amar le, so he said to him, Afkir zeisaya l'chashochaya. What you should do is, you should make your olives, make it hefker to the aniyim, v'tein pritaya l'kishkushe kram, and you should give prutos, you should give small coins to those who are hoeing the vineyard. And the Gemara says, "V'keshkushe mishari," but is it really permitted? Is the hoeing of the vineyard, is that really allowed? V'atanya, but we learned in a brisa, v'ashvi is tishmetenu netashta. It says in the pasuk that during the Shemitah year you have to let the land lay fallow. So tishmetenu milakashkesh, it's exactly what it says. Tishmetenu means you're not allowed to hoe the land. Unetashta milasakel. Netashta means that they used to take the stones and throw them outside the field. You're not allowed to do that as well. So you see from here, you're not allowed to hoe the land. So why was it that it was permitted? And so the Gemara says, Amar Ravukva Bar Chama, Ravukva Bar Chama says, Trei kishkushe have. There are two different kinds of kishkushe, of hoeing of the land. Chad stume pili. One of them is when you're sealing up the cracks that are in the land. V'chad avruye ilane. The other one is when you're doing it to make the trees healthy. Avruye ilane aser. If you're doing it to make the trees healthy, then it's prohibited. Stume pili shari. But if you're just doing it to seal the cracks in the land, then it's going to be okay. Rashi over here says, "Stume pili shasharoshim megulim." Sometimes the roots of the trees, they're revealed. B'tzarich lechasosim shelo yiva she'ilan. You need to cover them up so the tree doesn't dry up. Vuk meilani hu shelo yamus ve'eno osa lashbichan el kaiman shari. If you're just doing that in order that the trees don't die, that's permitted. But the other one is when you're making them healthier. You're basically making holes in the earth, moving the earth around. You want to make the ground soft. That makes the tree better, healthier. That's what I heard. In other languages, you're actually doing it directly to make the tree healthy, not just softening the earth. You're making it, again, you're improving the tree. But in any case, the point is, if you're doing it for that purpose to improve the tree, then it's going to be a problem. But just to seal up the cracks, that's going to be okay. And the Gemara continues, Amar Ivo Mishum Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok. Ivo says in the name of Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok, Al Yahalech Odom B'Arvei Shabbos Es Yosem Megimel Parsos. A person on Erev Shabbos on Friday shouldn't walk more than 3 parsa. Amar Rav Kahana says, Lo Amar No Levesi. That's only true if he's walking to his own house. Avolu Shpize, but if he's walking to a host, Amai Denoket Samach, then he relies on the food that he's carrying with him, and it's not going to be a problem. Rashi says, Lo Yahalech Ele Yishpos Lo Ba'od Yom Gadol V'Yachin Lo Suda Shabbos. Person shouldn't again travel so much on Friday. Better to stop early so you have plenty of time to prepare the Shabbos meal. Elo Levesi, and this restriction is only true if he's going to his own house. Sha'olech Lebeso V'Einam Yodim Sheyavo Hayom. He's going to his house and they don't know he's coming. They're not going to have food ready for him, and he's going to be angry. But he's going to stay by somebody else. He relies on his own food. He's not relying on the people of the house he's staying staying at. He's going to carry his meal with him. He's going to rely on that, so it's not going to be a problem in such a situation. Some have a different version. Rav Kahana said as follows. Rav Kahana said, Lo nitzrucha ela afilu lebeise. It's not needed even to his house. As Rashi over here says, Afilu lebeise, demashem motzi, im ma'at im rav shalo. There in a situation where he's going to his own house, it's all his anyway. Afal pichein lo yahalech, still, even though it's all his, he still shouldn't go such a long journey. And certainly he shouldn't go to someone else who's hosting him. Shalo yimsa klum, then he's not going to find anything. He's not going to have anything to eat if he's trying to rely on somebody else. So some people have the lashon that Rav Kahana was saying, not only is it true, of course it's true, if he's going somewhere else, he shouldn't walk more than 3 parsa, but even if he's going to his own house, he shouldn't walk more than 3 parsa. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Kahana said, B'didi have'uvda, with me, there was actually such a case, ve'afilu kasa daharsana lo ashkachi, even a little bit of fish I wasn't able to find. Rashi over here says, kasa daharsana suda muetes dogim ketanim mitugonim bekemach b'shuman shalem. That was a very small meal. They used to have small fish, and they were fried in flour and in their own oil. His point was that I did such a thing. I traveled, and when I got to my destination, I wasn't even able to find a little bit of food. And the idea in this story is that Rav Kahana was saying even when he traveled to his own house, as Rav Kahana said, even to one's own house, they can't rely on the fact that there's going to be enough food. And the Gemara continues that the 2 dots, quoting the Mishnah, Mitzvahs Lulav Ketzad, how do you fulfill the mitzvah of Lulav? Let's say again the first day of Sukkot falls out on Shabbos. The Mishnah had a whole description how they would set up the Lulavs by the benches. And so the Gemara says, Tani Tana Kamei de Rav Nachman, there was a Tana that taught in front of Rav Nachman, Sodrin al Gag Ho'itztava. They used to arrange the Lulavs on the roof of the Itztava. So Amar Lei, so he said back to him, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Mem Hey Amud Aleph.